And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Kent Holste podcast, right here on the KentHolstePodcast.com website, and as well as the YouTube channel. I'm so glad you decided to click this link and join in the conversation, as today we are going to be talking about what are you thinking? Or what are we thinking? Sometimes we go into situations not thinking about what we're going to say or what we're going to do to react. We just go in full bore, pedal to the floor, without even considering how these actions are going to affect a situation. And for me, for many years of my life, I never took things into consideration. I always did things on impulse. I just did it. I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't think about the things that could happen by acting in a way that could be jeopardizing my future, the way that I could live my life in a day-to-day basis, or even think about what it would do to friendships or even relationships. I don't know about you, but sometimes I just think to myself, what was I thinking? What were they thinking by doing certain things? What was I thinking by doing certain things? How can we change this? We're going to talk about more about this. What was I thinking? What were they thinking? As the Kent Holste podcast continues right here on the Kent Holste podcast. Have you seen the Kent Holste podcast website yet? If you haven't, now's a good time. It's all at www.KentHolstePodcast.com. It's more than just podcasts. There's interviews, blogs, sports talk, the corner ropes, circle of friends, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Check it out today. It's at www.KentHolstePodcast.com. Join the community. All right, so today we are talking about what was I thinking, or even what are they thinking? You know, sometimes we just are just so wrapped up in different situations that we don't really consider what we are doing. And there's been plenty of times in my life where I just was not thinking properly. You know, I have always had a mouth. I would get frustrated and I would just let everything out into the world and just not even think about what was coming out. You know, my parents always called it diarrhea of the mouth. And the consequences of me running my mouth or even acting in ways that were not appropriate were ruining the way that I was living my own life. And the sad thing is for many, many years, I did not open up to that and understand that by doing those things, I wasn't doing anything good. I wasn't helping myself. I wasn't making people like me by acting in those ways. I was doing more harm than anything else. So how do we change this? How do we change that what was I thinking into I know what I'm thinking? Or what were they thinking into I understand what they're thinking. A lot of it has to do with the willingness to communicate in the proper way. You know, lashing out, making threats, making accusations, or even assuming things are not the answer. In fact, doing those things makes things worse. And I guarantee you, each and every one of us does at least one of those things on a daily basis. And if you don't, I give you props. You're good. But chances are, there's a good percentage of people listening to this podcast right now that do it on a daily basis. And the thing is I'll own up to it. I'll admit that I'm not perfect and I act in ways where I later go, what was I thinking? Because chances are, when you do things wrong, if you have a heart, you think to yourself, what was I thinking? And you have remorse. And we've talked about this before. And if you don't have remorse, if you live your life on a daily basis thinking that you do nothing wrong and everything you do and say is justified, man, you need to rethink things. You need to relook at your life and really think, are you doing things the right way? Because if you're coming up with excuses and trying to justify all your actions that you do, you're not living life in a way that's going to lead to success. Now, we hear on this podcast all the time, I talk about success. Because it's important. Don't you want to live a successful life? I know myself, I don't want to live a mediocre life. I don't want to live a life where I have lived only doing things half-assed. No. I want to do things to my full potential. That's why when I go to my jobs and if I don't perform the way that I feel that I should, I beat myself up because I know that I didn't do things to my full potential. I like doing things knowing that I put in as much effort as I could and I did okay. I did the best that I could, regardless of questioning myself, regardless of, how my day has been or how people have treated me. Sometimes we just go into situations and we feel like we're being attacked, but we're not really being attacked. We hear people say things and we twist it to justify what we want to feel inside. And we ask ourselves, well, what are they thinking by saying these things? Do you take the time to really sit down and think about it and listen? Or do you get defensive? And when we come back, we'll touch more on this. Are you looking to join a good community with people that truly care about your feelings and emotions? Well, I encourage you to check out Kent Holste Podcast website, where you can find Circle of Friends. Circle of Friends is a place to be a community, but more importantly, a family. This is a page to be supportive by sharing special events that are positive or even letting others pray for you. A place that people can come together without fear of being judged, no matter of race or disabilities. A time to be that person that takes the time to care for others when it's needed most. We are all not just friends, we are family. It's the Kent Holste Podcast website at kentholstepodcast.com with Circle of Friends. All right, everybody. It is the Kent Holste Podcast, and we are back after that quick little reminder of the Kent Holste Podcast. Let's get back into the conversation here. So before we went to break, we were talking about listening and trying to understand people so we can try to prevent that. Well, what are they thinking? And being defensive. The biggest problem I've had is in the past, I didn't want to listen. I twisted things to try to fit what I wanted to feel at that point in time. Oh, Kent, you're not doing your homework right. Okay, well, sorry that I suck. That I know that's a really crappy example, but I mean, that's what I would do in that type of thing is I would change it. I would try to form it into something that it wasn't intended to be. Kent, if you would have put more effort into focusing into your work rather than going off and playing, maybe you would have passed your test. And in my eyes, I would turn it into, you know what? I didn't do good because I can't focus. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I would change it into a way to where I would play the victim. I would try to act like, I couldn't do it because of other things because I didn't want to admit, I didn't want to put forth the effort. And even now I can think to myself and say to you right now, what was I thinking by doing that? When people are trying to give constructive criticism, it's because they're trying to help, but sometimes we just don't want to hear it. And maybe sometimes it's how they come across that we get so defensive. But do they have a right? Maybe. Are they doing it because they care? Well, they wouldn't be saying it if they didn't, right? And that's how we got to look at things. We have to turn that, well, what were they thinking into, okay, I understand what they're thinking. That's what I'm trying to talk to you about right now. And that's what I'm trying to say. We always get defensive. We always get hurt by what others think and feel because either we don't want to hear it or we just don't want to admit it. And just as I've talked about before, I never wanted to admit that I was a failure. That I didn't do a good job because I didn't put forth the effort. And as much as I want to deny that at that point, as much as I didn't want to admit that at that point in my life, I wasn't doing anything good. And isn't it funny how we say in our own minds, well, what are they thinking? When we can turn around in that same moment and ask ourselves the same thing, what am I thinking? I just sometimes think to myself, well, obviously I was immature. Obviously I just wanted to do things on my own, and because of that, not wanting to listen to other people's advice and their feelings, it set me up for failure. That was my own doing. So what was I thinking? Why couldn't I have listened? Why couldn't I have been a better person to my family, to my friends, in my relationships, in my job life? It's because I wanted to be immature. It's because I didn't want to listen, because I didn't want to take the time. I didn't want to be in a situation where I could learn. I wanted to take the easy way out. I wanted to hide and act like nothing was a problem, when really I was creating more problems by doing that. So my question for you today, and in the comment spot, please join in this conversation. How many times have you thought to yourself, what was I thinking? And where did you take that question after asking that to yourself? Did you try to fix it? Did you try to figure it out? Or did you just leave it as that? What was I thinking? What about other times when you thought to yourself, what are they thinking? Maybe what they are thinking has nothing to do with you. Like we turn on the news, or we open the newspaper or magazines. We look at social media, and we see these people that make really bad choices that cause them to go to jail. We see people that make bad choices that cause them to be on probation, that cause them to go to rehab. And we think to ourselves, what were they thinking? Why do we care so much about what these people go through? And why aren't we doing enough to figure out how to fix that problem and try to help these people? What good does it do by asking these questions? Are we really solving these questions? I don't think we are sometimes. And it's just like the issue with when we see people struggling and hurting. There's more people that see these problems happening, and they just walk by without even bothering to see how they can help or what they can do to be an inspiration to these people that are in need. You know, I talk about living here in Texas and the amount of people that are homeless and living under, bridges and all that is insane to me. But how many people do you think actually go up and offer to help them? See why they're in that position. Offer them new clothes or give them food, or even, see if they need help contacting family that maybe they lost contact with that would be able to help. Maybe it's a matter of finding them a place to go to rehab because maybe they're struggling with addiction. And maybe that's why they're on the streets, is because their addiction has got to them so bad that they didn't even know where they are, or they might not even know what their own name is. Instead of just asking the question, let's do more to figure out the resolution to these issues. Why was I struggling? Because I wasn't willing to put in the work. Life is about work. Life is about doing certain things to make adjustments so things can get better. So we can learn the tools that we need to be successful. So as we get things kind of figured out here, I'm going to take one more quick break and we'll get things closed out for this topic of what was I thinking, or even what are they thinking, right here on the Kent Holste podcast. Hey everyone, I just want to take this time to thank you for tuning in to today's show. Without your support and watching these videos, this podcast wouldn't be where it's at today. And the same goes for the website as well, and the YouTube channel. So to help me out even more, if you haven't done so yet, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And don't forget to ring that bell so you can be notified when a new, amazing content comes out. Also, don't forget to check out all the other social media sites as well, and like, share, and comment, and subscribe there too. It all is being a part of this community where we can come together and show that we care for one another so we can motivate and encourage others. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the show. I really hope that on today's podcast, you guys have taken something from this because, sometimes as I talk, I think to myself, wow, did I really just say that? Man, I need to utilize that more in my life. This podcast was designed in a way to help encourage people. Currently, along with this podcast today, there is a series of podcasts that are being posted daily up until next Monday. That is a flashback from when the podcast really got going strong and really had some hard-hitting topics. And it was back from the year 2018. And I encourage you to kind of listen to those because there's some really good topics that I chose for this series. And it's been going on for a couple days now, but it's going on through Monday, June. Let's see the calendar here, the 14th. And I really hope that you take that time to listen to it because there's some good stuff on there. But yeah, as for this topic today, what was I thinking, or what were they thinking? A lot of this can be solved by just taking the time to figure it out. Figure out what they're trying to think. And take it to the next level and help them. And then also, it comes down to the what was I thinking portion. Sometimes that's all it takes is for someone to take the 5 minutes kind of comprehend what was going on and think, okay, well, this is what I can take from my actions. This is what I can do better. And it's not going to get better unless you try to figure it out and try to do the best you can to make the most out of it. Because like I said, life is about learning. Life is about having that personal growth. And a lot of it is understanding yourself, but most importantly, it's understanding other people too. So think about that today. And also make sure you comment. Make sure your comments are respectful and kind. Like I said, this is a podcast designed to help people and encourage people to be at their best, but most importantly, so other people who aren't confident can become confident and live that successful life. So do that today. And as always, think and be positive. Do what you can today, not what you can't, to figure out why you're asking yourself, what was I thinking? Or what are they thinking? Or what were they thinking? There's so many ways that we could ask these questions, but it's about taking it to that next level and figuring it out to better the situation, not just for yourself, but for other people too, for their benefit. So do that today, because I believe in you. Don't you think you should too? And if you see someone who served our country, whether it be military, police, fire, or even medical, please give them an elbow or even a fist bump. Tell them how much you appreciate them. You never know how much they might appreciate that one random act of kindness. So do that today. And as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and ring that bell for all the notifications of all the great new content that's being put out here on the YouTube channel and the Kent Holste podcast website. Thank you again for all your support. And make sure you stay healthy and safe during this summer season. And most importantly, God bless.